Hello, I'm Alan and this is my video, part 1. Firstly, let's talk about discrimination. So, in my old school, I heard after I left that they got rid of all the South African teachers. And it's quite commonly known that like online jobs and jobs in general, that they would prefer to have English, Irish, Australian, American over South Africans, and South Africans have a slightly harder time in terms of visas and requirements and things like that. So that's not exactly equal. And in fact, wages in general are not equal. If you look at all the jobs, like at my job at mine at the moment, because of the pandemic and stuff, we lost our bonus, and then we lost our sandwiches, and we keep losing things all the time, I noticed. And our place of work has also been moved to a smaller place to save money. But eventually, perhaps all the native English speakers will say, look, 300 baht is not enough, there's not enough. So they'll probably just go to Filipinos, because Filipino teachers are cheaper. And if in my school, I know I get a lot more money than the TA in the very classroom who's probably doing more work than me. So this isn't really a fair system just because I'm a native speaker. So there is a lot of discrimination in that sense, in terms of where you come from and what you're willing to do for a certain amount of money. And it should be more equal. Okay, and the next point was inclusion and exclusion. So I plan all my classes to be equal, and I teach in a small school at the moment, so everything is done with the point of like there's like dancing where the whole class has to learn a dance. There's reading competitions where the strongest do some reading, but there's like we have things like Halloween and Songkran, and there's lots of things going on, and it's not like there's no one not involved. I mean, yeah, the stronger students probably get to do a bit more than the weaker students in terms of being MCs and stuff, but it's not so bad. But I am aware, in terms of inclusion and exclusion, of like the more better your education is probably going to cost money, so that poorer kids in poorer schools won't have so much access, or they'll probably have a harder time getting into a bigger school. Okay, so topic 3 is diversity and change. So, diversity, shall we say. At my school, I mean, in an ideal situation, everybody, because I work at a kindergarten, I think in an ideal situation, if you want to be female, if you want to be English, Irish, Australian or American, and everybody would be young, like younger than me. But we do have like somebody who's over like 50 from New Zealand. We have an American girl, 2 American girls, and we just had an Irish girl, and we've got a Polish guy about my age. So they're probably a little bit disappointed in some respects, but they have to make do. But I do notice that in all the advertising and multimedia, that poor Barbara, the 50-year-old New Zealander, is never used. She's never used as a front or advertisement, even so she's been here the longest, which is not exactly great. And talking about wages, like I say, like at my job on the weekend, I've lost my bonus, so now I'm looking for 300 instead of 390. And like keep changing the place to save money. They keep looking at areas to save money. It's like because of the pandemic, wages are not going up; they're going down. And opportunities are probably going to like go down too, because there's less jobs. But teachers are always needed, even if they're not willing to pay the wages, which leads to the Filipino conundrum. And also, I work at a school where Chinese is taught too, and it is considered slightly more important Chinese. So it does lead to a kind of thought that maybe that Chinese is the future. I mean, especially in Asia, being close to China. Like, children want to learn English because it makes it a very global language, but Chinese, I mean, like, are my kids going to come here and he'll probably learn Chinese? And if I don't learn Chinese, I mean, change. I mean, like, will English become, like, will the next Tesla course be just Chinese people? I don't know. I mean, you can't really predict the future. Okay, so this is part 1. Okay. Hello, and today I'm doing part 2. And part 2 is points 4, 5 and 6. So firstly, part 4, teaching equality. So it talks about teaching equally. It's like treating everyone equally, and I try to. Obviously it's quite hard because you're always going to focus on the students who are better, but I do try. So in an ideal situation, on a Monday I make things relatively easy, and on a Tuesday, on a Wednesday, on a Thursday I gradually make things harder, and then on a Friday I bring it back down, ready for the weekend. But it's not always possible because they don't write me on schedule. So if Monday I have spelling, writing, maths, I have to kind of work with what I've got. But I'll try. And I try to include everybody, and I try to get everyone to speak. But again, it's not always plausible to go around the whole classroom, especially if deep down, the person who you're getting to last doesn't really speak Dutch. And so that's teaching equally. I mean, that's how we should do this. And language and culture. So language and culture. I mean, there is a bit of a conflict between English and American to begin with. So if I'm teaching from a textbook or I have an idea, I tend to sort of teach English or English ideas, but I sometimes feel guilty, or sometimes if I see I'm teaching someone Thai and it's too English, I sort of tone it back. And then there's the Thai and Chinese kind of culture clash too, because you've got to keep things Thai and polite and you can't say certain things. And then there's Chinese as well, so if you start bringing Chinese into it, I mean, like I say, at my school they speak 3 languages, so if they're not as good at English but they're good at Chinese, or they're really good at English or not good at Chinese, I mean, it's sort of it's hard to get a good balance if they're trying to learn 3 languages at the same time, expectations and things. And culture as well. I mean, I don't need to teach Chinese culture, but I still need to celebrate Chinese New Year. I still need to celebrate Songkran. All these kind of things are not necessarily natural to me. So, and then number 6. Number 6 is pretty much the same, including multicultural perspective. So I mean, like I say, Chinese New Year, Songkran, Lai Katong, and then sort of maybe sneak Easter in there as well at the same time, but then it's kind of religious. My school at the moment is not very religious. My last school was very Thai. They celebrated it, and they did lots of Thai dancing and that kind of stuff. Okay, so that is teaching equally languages and culture, and including multicultural perspectives. Hello, this is part 3. This is part 7 and 8. So it talks about equality in ethnic and gender differences. Well, there are differences between boys and girls, but I don't treat them differently as such. I mean, sporting wise, maybe strength wise, you might treat them subconsciously slightly different, and you might think of girls being more clever, or boys not being, more stronger. You might sort of fit into certain stereotypes by mistake, but I try not to. And in terms of ethnic inequality, that kind of stuff, I'm mostly, my experience is teaching Thai students. In my last school, probably not as rich as this school. I mean, it's not I teach Muslims or Laois or refugees or anyone from it's all very in a narrow margin. But talking about, the other kind of people who I don't teach, I mean, I know there's problems in the south. I know there's racism and problems with towards the Vietnamese and the Laos and all them coming over our border, and we blaming them for COVID and all that kind of stuff. But I know other people in my class who teach outside of Bangkok, and life is a lot different, a lot harder. And finally, number 8, disabilities. I've got like a little bit of experience with this. In my last school, I had 5 classes, and 2 of them each had one person who was kind of special. I don't know the exact nature of their disorder or such. One couldn't speak as well, but was quite happy, and one couldn't keep still. But I did kind of feel like this, like a whole kind of corporal punishment and TAs in my life at school was like the children had like a ruler behind the desk, and I feel like to control the crazy disabled child who couldn't keep still, there was a lot of unnecessary physical use, probably. But at this school, it's quite relaxed. It's not, if anything is too relaxed, there's lots of naughty children, which is the counterbalance of being too hard on children but being too soft. You've got to get the balance right. So that is me. Okay, there.